1965, President Lyndon Johnson begged Britain to send just one regiment to Vietnam. Just a single battalion. Even a bagpipe band. Harold Wilson said no every single time. December 1964. The White House. Lyndon Johnson had just won re-election in a landslide. But Vietnam was falling apart. The Viet Cong controlled more territory every week. South Vietnam's government was collapsing. Johnson needed allies. International legitimacy. Proof this wasn't just an American war. So he picked up the phone and called Britain. The special relationship, they called it. Britain and America had fought together in 2 world wars. Koreo. They shared intelligence, nuclear secrets, military bases. If anyone would support America in Vietnam, it would be Britain. Prime Minister Harold Wilson came to Washington that December. Johnson pulled out all the stops. State dinners, private meetings, walks around the White House lawn. The ask was simple. Send troops to Vietnam. Even a token force. Australia sent troops. New Zealand sent troops. South Korea sent 50,000 men. Thailand, the Philippines, everyone was contributing something. Britain had 50,000 troops stationed in Malaysia and Singapore. They were already in Southeast Asia, fighting their own communist insurgency. Just redeploy some to Vietnam. Wilson refused. Johnson was stunned. According to declassified documents, he couldn't understand it. Britain was broke, deeply in debt. They needed American financial support to prop up the pound sterling. Johnson had leverage. He knew it. Wilson knew it. But Wilson still said no. For the next 3 years, Johnson didn't stop asking. The presidential daily diary, now declassified, shows the obsession. January 1965, February, March. Phone calls, cables, letters. Secretary of State Dean Rusk visited London. He told Foreign Secretary Michael Stewart that even one British battalion would transform international perception. Make it look less like American imperialism. Stewart refused. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara tried. He met with British Defense Minister Dennis Healey, offered to pay for everything, equipment, transport, supplies. Britain wouldn't spend a penny. Healey refused. National Security Advisor McGeorge Bundy proposed the bagpipe band option. It's in the declassified memos. He literally suggested Britain send a single military band, just for appearances. Wilson refused. In June 1965, Johnson invited Wilson to Washington again. This time he deployed what insiders called the treatment. Johnson was famous for it. Physical intimidation, getting in people's faces, grabbing their lapels, boxing them in. He took Wilson to Camp David. Just the 2 of them and their closest advisors. According to Wilson's personal secretary, Johnson spent hours applying pressure. He offered money, threatened to withdraw support for the pound, appealed to history. We stood by you in World War II. Stand by us now. Wilson's answer: no British troops would fight in Vietnam. Johnson was furious. The word he used, recorded by multiple witnesses, was betrayal. But Wilson had reasons. Very specific, very calculated reasons. Reason 1, Britain was already fighting its own Vietnam. 1963 to 1966, the Indonesian confrontation. President Sukarno of Indonesia opposed the formation of Malaysia. He launched a guerrilla war. Indonesian troops infiltrated Borneo, conducted raids, sabotaged infrastructure. Britain had treaty obligations to defend Malaysia. They deployed 50,000 troops, fought a 3-year jungle war against communist-backed Indonesian forces. British SAS units conducted covert operations deep into Indonesian territory. It was brutal, it was secret, and it was draining Britain's military resources. Dennis Healey told the cabinet in 1965, "We cannot fight in Borneo and Vietnam simultaneously. We don't have the troops." The confrontation would kill 590 Commonwealth soldiers. If Britain committed to Vietnam, Malaysia would fall.
Wilson chose Malaysia.
Reason 2, the economic stranglehold. Britain was broke. World War II had bankrupted the empire. By 1964, Britain's gold reserves were dangerously low. The pound sterling was overvalued. Speculators were betting against it. Wilson's government needed American financial support badly. But here's the paradox. Britain also needed to maintain independence from America. The Labour Party, Wilson's party, was split on Vietnam. The left wing thought it was American imperialism. Tony Benn, Barbara Castle, Michael Foot all opposed the war. If Wilson sent troops, his government would collapse. He'd face a vote of no confidence. Chancellor James Callaghan laid it out in cabinet meetings, documented in the official records. We need American money to save the pound, but we need party unity to stay in government. We can't have both if we fight in Vietnam. Wilson walked a tightrope. He verbally supported America, defended U.S. policy in Parliament, refused to condemn the bombing, but he sent no troops. Reason 3, the Suez lesson. The Suez crisis. Britain and France invaded Egypt to retake the Suez Canal. President Eisenhower was furious. America refused to support Britain's currency. The pound collapsed. Prime Minister Anthony Eden was forced to withdraw and resign in humiliation. The lesson was burned into British political consciousness. Never again get into a military adventure without absolute American support for your economy. But Vietnam inverted the lesson. This time, America wanted Britain to join an adventure, and Wilson realized he had leverage. Declassified Treasury documents show the calculation. If Johnson wanted troops, he'd have to guarantee support for the pound. Unconditional support. No matter what, Johnson wouldn't make that guarantee. So Wilson had his answer. No troops. Patrick Dean, British ambassador to Washington, put it bluntly in a 1965 cable. We learned from Suez that we cannot act militarily without American financial support. The Americans are learning they cannot act militarily without our political support. We finally have equality. But Wilson couldn't just say no and walk away. He needed American money. He needed to maintain the special relationship. He needed to avoid a complete rupture. So he played a masterful diplomatic game. He offered everything except troops. British advisors went to Vietnam. Training missions. Intelligence sharing. The British Advisory Mission, established in 1965, sent military experts to Saigon. Britain sold equipment to America. Helicopters, vehicles, weapons, made money off the war without fighting it. Wilson launched peace initiatives. Constantly, publicly, he sent Foreign Secretary Michael Stewart to Hanoi, to Moscow, to Beijing, tried to negotiate a settlement. All the initiatives failed, but they served a purpose. They made Britain look like the responsible ally, the voice of reason, the partner trying to end the war, not escalate it. And crucially, Wilson never condemned American policy. Labor MPs screamed at him in Parliament. 100 Labor members signed a motion criticizing U.S. bombing in 1967. The party conference voted to condemn the war. Wilson ignored them all. He defended American policy in Parliament. He justified the bombing. He attacked critics as naive about communist expansion. But he sent no troops. Johnson saw through it. In private, he called Wilson a hypocrite. Declassified phone calls show his contempt. Harold talks a good game, but he won't put boots on the ground. The relationship grew icy. November 1965. Wilson requested urgent financial support for the pound. Speculators were attacking. Britain needed dollars immediately. Johnson delayed, let Wilson sweat, then finally released the funds. But the message was clear. This isn't free. February 1968. The Tet Offensive. Viet Cong forces attacked every major city in South Vietnam simultaneously. The American embassy in Saigon was breached. Hue fell. The war Johnson had promised was nearly won. Tet proved that was a lie. Johnson was desperate. He needed reinforcements. 200,000 more American troops, but also international troops. Anything to share the burden. He made one last appeal to Wilson. Not a full combat force, just a hospital ship, a medical battalion, something to show Commonwealth support. The cabinet debated it. The discussion is in the official minutes. Foreign Secretary George Brown argued for sending something. We cannot keep refusing everything. The relationship will break permanently. Chancellor Roy Jenkins argued against. We cannot afford it. Not financially. Not politically. Wilson sided with Jenkins. The answer was no. On March 31, 1968, Johnson went on television. He announced he would not seek re-election. The Vietnam War had destroyed his presidency. Britain had watched it happen, had refused to help stop it, had protected its own interests while America bled. The special relationship survived. But it was never quite the same. Here's the irony. Wilson was right. Militarily, economically, politically, staying out of Vietnam was the correct decision. Britain's empire died anyway. The pound collapsed in 1967 despite everything. Wilson himself was voted out in 1970. But no British troops died in Vietnamese jungles. America learned what Britain already knew from Suez. Empires don't get to choose how they end. They only get to choose what they sacrifice along the way.